Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret. My name is Jeff Sharon. Along with me, my usual cohorts, Brian Murphy and Eric Lopez. And joining us now to talk some big-time basketball news, the one, the only, number one in your hearts, number 4 on your roster program, Mike O'Donnell, joining us here for the first time in a while. Hi, Mike.
How we doing, guys? Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. How's quarantine life treating you?
You know, I think I don't even know how you answer that question anymore, right? Because it just seems new every day. But I am, as you know, Jeff, you've known me for a long time. I am probably inappropriately optimistic with everything. And so, you know, a family is healthy and happy. And even though the kids are driving me absolutely crazy, I get to make up for some lost time from a lot of traveling during college hoop season. So I'm very thankful for that. I am very tired, but we're healthy and happy. So I consider that a blessing.
Well, it's good to see you. I'm glad everybody's doing okay. We got Brian and Eric are here with us. And the reason why we brought you on, first of all, thanks for spending time with us. It's been a while. And we were looking forward to seeing, last time we were talking basketball with anybody, everything was getting shut down. But, it's been a wild offseason, but the wild offseason just got a little bit wilder with the news from UCF that we've got a new, the first ever 5-star in the history of UCF is coming over as a transfer. CJ Walker, who is originally from Stanford, played at Oak Ridge, went to school initially at Oregon and decided to put up a post a couple of days ago saying that he wanted to be a little bit closer to his family, and has now announced that he is committed to coming to UCF and is the first ever 5-star in UCF history. Granted, not out of high school, but whatever, we'll take it. First of all, when you heard the news that he was coming down, what'd you think?
Well, it's such a huge addition to the roster. It's a much needed addition to the roster. I think Coach Dawkins has learned, it's hard to, right? It's the nature of the business, right? It's really hard to get those guys right out of high school, right? Because you might be going to the Oregons, Kentuckys, Dukes, Carolinas, but there is a ton of talent in Orlando, and if it doesn't work the first year, I think everybody I think for CJ Walker, you got to understand that he was recruited hard by Coach Dawkins and his staff coming out of high school. But I think when you're showing a lot of love coming out of high school, and then you go to a situation that you think you made your best decision and it didn't work, and then you're like, wait a second, I want to go to where I'm comfortable and where I think my gut felt right. I think it was a pretty easy decision for him. I think he had a great relationship with Coach Dawkins. You're getting to get a chance to play in front of your family. And I mean, that's the guy that your average basketball fan in Orlando will want to watch because just of how athletic and his potential's kind of through the roof. So I was ecstatic to see him come back to his hometown team.
Yeah, he's listed at 6'8", 200. Last year for Oregon, he played in 28 games, averaged 4 points and 2.5 rebounds in, obviously relatively limited action, only 14.9 minutes per game. But, all you got to do is just do a quick little search on YouTube and see how athletic this guy really is. Go ahead, Brian. I know you wanted to ask Mike.
Well, I just think, Mike, in general, when you talk about C.J. Walker and what he brings, is he the best player of the Dawkins era? And if so, has there been a player of this caliber, just athletically, naturally gifted, that we've seen at UCF?
That second question is a really hard question. I'm going to think about it while I'm answering your first question. By the way, your beard is fantastic, Brian. It's outstanding.
Thank you, Mike. I've been trying to tell him this for weeks now.
I always have beard envy because I feel like I'm still going through puberty and I just can't do that. I would love to do it. I don't have the enough testosterone in my body to pull it off. So well done, my friend. Well done. I don't. You can't say he's going to be the best player in the Dawkins era because we just don't know yet, right? I mean, I think even CJ would tell you that he didn't play. I think if you ask CJ, he would tell you, I didn't play to my potential that first year at Oregon. I think he, along with Dawkins and the rest of the coaching staff, is going to learn how good CJ Walker can be. I do think he is a guy that absolutely has all the tools to be an NBA player. Mm-hmm. If you ask me right now if he's going to be the best player in the Dawkins era, I would say no, because we haven't seen him in a system that's conducive to his abilities, right? I mean, you guys know this game so well. Like, there are some guys that are just freaks. Like, you put LeBron in any system and he's going to be LeBron. But even five-star guys, they need a system that will allow them to showcase their skills, right? That's all great. Every coach wants the right players in their system and all that stuff. But if you look at Oregon's system, if you remember that team, that was heavily, heavily relied upon Peyton Pritchard, who was one of the best players in college basketball. And he's a ball-dominant guard. It's a lot of ball screen. He's taking shots. And it survived. Oregon was a very good three-point shooting team. And I think with Dawkins, when I looked at C.J. Walker and you say, I'm getting a little off track here, Brian, I'll come back to it. When you look at C.J. Walker and you pair him up with Colin Smith, what did Coach Dawkins prove during the greatest year in the history of UCF basketball? He proved that he knows how to coach size and athleticism. And I think if you're CJ Walker, you're like, I love that, because Coach Dawkins, like, there are some coaches that wouldn't know how to coach Taco Fall and Colin Smith and Chad Brown together. Coach Dawkins did that. So when you look at with CJ Walker, I'm excited to see how Dawkins uses him. It's less about using him, and it's more about putting in a position for him to be successful. And that may sound cliche, but it's not easy to do. Some coaches just don't do it, right? It's just your offense or not. To sum up, I can't say he's going to be the best player that Dawkins ever coached, but I absolutely can say that there's a really good chance that we might be saying that in 2 years. In terms of athleticism, I would have a hard time arguing against, from just a recruit standpoint, him being the most athletic recruit that's ever come into UCF. Now, Jermaine Taylor was just an absolute freak and an animal. The David Diakite was just a ridiculous athlete. Aubrey Dawkins was an amazing athlete, but it's going to be hard. I think when he suits up, if he gets eligible, which I think he will immediately, I think it's going to be hard to find someone more athletic than CJ. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, wow, they do have to cross that hurdle, right, with the eligibility still. But you're thinking that he'll get through okay?
If I had
who knows, really?
Right. If I had to flip a coin, if he's transferring because of the pandemic and to be closer to home because of family, because there might be health concerns, I would be surprised if the NCAA didn't didn't work with that. If he transferred home just because he wanted to be closer to home, right, that's a harder thing to pull off. But we are in a pandemic. I mean, this sounds terrible to say, but you should use that to your advantage if you're trying to play right away.
Yeah, that would make sense. Give us a comp on what kind of player he is, you think. You've mentioned, you even tweeted it out when the news came out, that you think if he's eligible that he'll help UCF maybe have the best front court in the American. Oh, yeah. So those are my two questions. Give us a comp either of a previous UCF player or maybe just a college basketball player in general that you would compare him to, so that those that may not be familiar with him can kind of relate to, oh, that's the type of player he can be. And then why do you feel that how he will fit with Colin and then the rest of the front court that you think could be the best in the league?
So a player comp I would use for CJ Walker, he doesn't play this hard yet, but I've been to practices, and I know Coach Dawkins well. You don't have a choice. You're either going to play. You're going to play to your biggest potential in terms of effort, your highest effort potential for Dawkins. You're just not going to play, right? He's old school in that standpoint, which I love. I think it fits the UCF brand really well. He doesn't play as hard as Kevin Garnett, but when you're talking about length, athleticism, and kind of skill around the rim, he has Kevin Garnett qualities. I'm not saying he is Kevin Garnett, but the way he moves, the way he jumps, the way he can guard multiple positions reminds me a lot of like how wiry and athletic and long Kevin Garnett was coming out of high school. There's a lot of that in his game. And the front court conversation, the reason why I tweeted that out is if it was just CJ Walker, I would say I wouldn't have said that. If it was just CJ Walker and Colin Smith, I may not have tweeted that out. But what a lot of people are forgetting is how important Sean Mobley is going to be to this UCF team. He has one of the best basketball IQs I've ever been around. He is totally opposite of Colin Smith and CJ Walker in the way that he plays. He is a point forward in that if you asked Sean Mobley to bring it up the court and initiate the offense, he could. And then if you asked him to sit to be in a pick and roll, he could do that. Where he's a better perimeter shooter than Colin Smith, but he's not as athletically gifted. But he is when I watch him at VCU, and I've known Sean for a long time, Sean's one of the best passing forwards in college basketball. I believe that. His vision, the way he orchestrates, is fantastic. And a lot of it's not going to show up in the stat sheet. He might be the best hockey assist passer for a big man, quote unquote big man, I've ever seen. He is all about the offense first, and he's less about his stats. And that just complements Colin Smith so well already. It was already going to be a really good front court. Then you add CJ Walker in, who plays more above the rim than Colin Smith and Sean Mobley do combined. You've got a guy who's just ferocious around the rim. You've got Colin Smith, who's so good in the one-on-one. And you've got Sean Mobley, who can step out to the three, and he can drive a kick like he's a guard. So the high-low capabilities, the way there's going to be mismatches, if you're utilizing it correctly, it's going to be hard to emulate. It's going to be hard for an opposing team to emulate that in practice.
Looking at the potential starting five for next year, Mike. So I'm thinking, based on what you were saying with the front court, it's going to be Colin, it's going to be CJ Walker, and the news that Colin Smith is coming back was obviously welcome news to everybody the last couple of days. And then you're also saying that Sean Mobley will also start in the front court, and you're thinking. Are you thinking also in the backcourt it'll likely be Darius Perry and Darren Green Jr.? Is that what you think would be a good starting five, at least to start out?
That's a heck of a starting five. I mean, that's a top five starting five at least in the American. Darius Perry's really good. Remember he signed up for a different system, He signed up under a Patino system, and then that system changed when Chris Mack became the head coach. So again, we talk about guys are really talented. There's plenty of talent, but a lot of times the system can really benefit a player. He is so good in the open court. He's so good one-on-one, and just a ridiculously underrated passer. A guy like Darius Perry will probably he's going to want to average 20 a game, but he could average 10 to 12 assists a game if he totally embodies the point guard system. Because think about the way the court is spread, right? So if you're trying to spread the court out, and Dawkins loves ball screens, so you're telling me you've got 3 guys on the court at any given time that can be in a ball screen with Darius Perry. So if it's Colin Smith, he's going to pick and roll and catch mid-range and do his thing, right? Or around the rim. If it's CJ Walker, it's pick and roll, throw it up anywhere around the rim, and he's going to go get it. And if it's Sean Mobley, it's probably going to be pick and pop. So you've got to prepare for pick and pop, pick and roll, pick and lob with 3 different guys. I mean, that's tough. So, yeah, Darius Perry would absolutely be the starting guard. And then if you're worried about the roll action so much, just stick Darren Green on the other wing, and it's skip, and he's the best. He's the best three-point shooter in the American Conference entering conference play. So that would be the starting lineup. And then you got Tony Johnson coming off the bench, as well as a number of other guys. And I just think this is an awfully talented lineup. It really is.
Yeah, there's so many options. Even I thought yesterday we were kind of going over this in some of our group chats, and I mentioned that Dre Fuller could start, but you got also Brandon Mahan, and there's just a ton of guys.
Well, think about the bench, but Brian, to your point, think about the bench.
Yeah,
right? I mean, like to me, Darius Perry, I just think he's going to be the starting point. It's a no-brainer. And Darren Green, you're not going to have the best three-point shooter in the American Conference come off the bench, because you're also going to want to spread the floor so you've got more room for the bigs to operate around the rim. The guys you just mentioned coming off, Dre Fuller and Brandon Mahan coming off the bench, not to mention the freshmen who are also really talented. We could see the makings of the most talented team that Coach Dawkins has ever coached, at least on par with the BJ Taylor, Aubrey Dawkins, Taco Fall team. It's pretty close from top to bottom.
That's big. That's huge. That's a big statement you just made there. I mean, I think that's very well, because as you know, I mean, there's people out there that have been, well, can Coach Dawkins recruit? I think this is an exclamation point answer of yes, he can, after putting this roster together here, not just with the transfers, but even the freshmen and guys like the Darren Greens. They've really been mixing in all these guys.
Not easy, though. Not easy to find PT for everybody. Guys get frustrated, right? Not easy to find shots for everybody. The thing to where this UCF team is going to be most successful is if I was to take a guess, I wouldn't want to have a go-to guy on this team. If this UCF team, especially if CJ Walker, again, that's something that we do have to keep saying, if he is immediately eligible this season, do all of those guys want to be a piece of a puzzle to get back to the NCAA tournament? If they can honestly answer that question, they can say yes. There's just not many teams that are going to be able to stack up with them from a front court, and there's not many teams that are going to be as deep. If your 8th, 9th guy coming off the bench was Florida's Mr. Basketball, that's big time. I mean, like that's really, really good. So that's exciting to think about as fans, right? And it's exciting to talk about from a radio podcast perspective. Now comes the hard part for Coach Dawkins. How do I take this amoeba and put it into a shape that's ultimately going to be consistent, right? And is going to provide enough PT, enough points, enough confidence for everybody to commit to the larger vision. It's not easy to do, but I would rather have that problem than have than being frustrated of where are we going to get points from, where are we going to get shots from, right? It's a double-edged sword there.
Well,
go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
Well, I think everybody should have faith in Johnny to handle all those moving parts, because that does come down to coaching.
That's what you signed up for, right?
Right. That's his job, and he's so good at that. And, you look at his tenure here, in years in which UCF maybe fell short of expectations, you could not put an ounce of that on coaching. It's never been his fault for anything that they've come up short on. So when they've got the pieces in place and they're healthy, please, things work out, because he's really good at putting these pieces together.
I agree with that. I think Coach Dawkins would always blame himself, though. He's just that old school wired guy, which is honestly, it's refreshing to me. I don't think we get enough honesty, from coaches. So.
Well, that's one of the things also that, and this cuts across sports too, Mike, is that, I personally have always thought that the mark of a good coach is they adapt the system to their players, not the players to their system, right? And I think that there are coaches who come from both schools and have very good reasons for doing that. But, Johnny has proven himself to be the guy who likes to adapt his system to those players. You play with the hand you're dealt, right?
The offense and defense of the NIT team versus the NCAA tournament team was totally different.
Yeah.
With a lot of the same guys, and that's what coaching is. Your job is to adjust to win, not to adjust to be comfortable.
Obviously, CJ made this decision, and he's stated explicitly that he wants to be closer to family. He has some ill relatives that he wants to be closer to. But can you see, Mike, his decision to come to UCF maybe open up the eyes of this class of athlete and show them that you can come to UCF. You can be a top 30 national prospect and go to UCF. We can make you here. Or do you think that this is a kind of a one-off special exception?
I don't know I don't think it would be a one-off exception. I think the reality for the next couple of years is it's still going to be really hard to get those guys coming out of high school. But I think it kind of in parallel with the reality of what I just said, I also think like the former 5-star recruit that maybe went to a Kentucky or Kansas that didn't have, especially a Central Florida, because Central Florida basketball talent's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Goes into a system that's like, I went for the name and I didn't study the system. That's really why most guys actually transfer. They go for the name and they don't research the system. I'm a testament to that. I think you'll see the transfer market flood a little bit more, for UCF. And now too, Brian, you gotta think about players are recruiting other players now more than ever. You look at, the AAU team that CJ Walker played for, the high school. It's just constant, big time recruits that come out of those programs. And now more than ever, you want to play with your boys. You want to play with your buddies. And absolutely, CJ Walker could be a guy that I think he would, if you're a coach, you still got to recruit. But I think players want to play with their boys now. And I think we're seeing more recruiting, player to player than we've ever had before. So that could be even a bigger frame of reference, Brian, as well.
I want to ask you, you mentioned earlier Mr. Florida basketball, which normally that in itself is exciting. Isaiah Adams, first ever Mr. Florida basketball to play at UCF. B.J. Taylor was a runner-up in 2014. Tell us a little bit about him, because that's also a big noteworthy recruit. This is, to me, in a lot of ways, a historic offseason for UCF basketball from a recruiting standpoint.
Yeah, so he is Isaiah Adams. You're exactly right. It really is maybe the best recruiting year now that you count C.J. Walker in the history of UCF. Isaiah Adams he's not a guy who's going to come in and give you 30, right? What people rave about, and when you watch him play, is that his motor is off the charts good. And that's what really attracted Coach Dawkins to Isaiah Adams, is that he lives to block shots. He is we always talk about the gazelle out there on the court. When he runs, he's one of those guys, he runs and it looks like he's floating, right? Or he's floating around the rim. There's a lot of similarities between CJ Walker and Isaiah Adams. It's almost like Isaiah's a little bit of a younger version, except Isaiah is a fantastic rebounder and gets probably almost half of his points off rebounds. I mean, he is a guy who in high school, grab a rebound defensively, push it in full court and go dunk on the other end. Now, probably not going to happen as often in college, but his motor and his ability to glide like effortlessly is what really kind of attracts a lot of coaches to his game. And you want that guy out on the open floor. You want him with a really great passing guard, right? You want him with a guy who can find him in the open floor, catch rip at the 3-point line, get to the rim, and he's got a little bit of that. Aubrey Dawkins will make it. Remember we were watching him play and he would dunk and you'd be like, and the average fan would be like, oh, nice dunk. The guys that know hoop are like, that was insane. He makes like the good look average. That's kind of Isaiah. Like athletic plays, he makes the really good athletic play look average. And he's a special kid. He really is.
Yeah, I think back to that to the obviously the Duke game and Aubrey's final game, and I think back to his performance that day was, like you said, he made it what he was doing look easy and so smooth, and that was against NBA talent. And when you compare that to Isaiah Adams and you mentioned obviously his love for blocking shots and rebounding, not too bad for a kid who's listed at 6'6", that he plays that much higher above his height, right?
Yeah, he was a 20 and 10 guy in high school. There's 20 points, 10 rebounds. You got to have a motor. Rebounding is okay. This isn't good podcast, material, but like,
yes, it is. It always
95% of rebounding is. It wasn't on you. It was on me. I'm a geek about this stuff. 95% of rebounding is effort. You can have the best boxing out form all you want, but if you don't have the effort, and if you don't have if you have to combine effort and anticipation. And you can't just have one. It doesn't work like that. You've got to be able to split the two. It's got to be even. It doesn't. You have to have. If you're going to have effort, you have to have a huge amount of anticipation and understanding where the ball is going to go. But you love that as a player, like this, because that, to me, a guy like that, if a guy's a great rebounder, there's a really good chance he's coachable, because that just means that most great rebounders are doing the work that nobody else wants to do. And there's a little bit of there's some selflessness in that I think is attractive to a lot of coaches. But further on that, you've got, again, we go back to the talent of this team, Mr. Basketball of Florida, right? On paper, you were the best high school basketball player in the state of Florida. You're going to come off the bench. What do you do with that, right? Will his effort be tainted because all of a sudden he's not the guy? How will Coach Dawkins and coaching staff, motivate him and use that and try to teach him that, you're playing behind a potential all-conference guy. You're playing behind a potential a five-star. I mean, you've got to think about all that stuff where it's exciting, but he's coming on. He's probably going to come off the bench. He might start again. Coach Dawkins. The one thing about Coach Dawkins, you guys have seen how often the lineup changes. If you don't bring it in practice, you're not playing. You're not playing. So could a guy like Isaiah Adams come in and start? Absolutely. Like if he beats out Sean Mobley in the starting lineup, I mean, it's going to be because of effort and practice.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at other Mr. Florida winners, those guys recently, like Vernon Carey's and Kevin Knox, those guys came in and were the guy from the jump, right? And so he needs to adjust to that. And that comes down to coaching too. I know Dawkins does like to redshirt the freshman, you wouldn't see that Isaiah might be redshirted.
I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
Shocked. Yeah. I just think, you know, with all this talent, now it's a guy like that. You probably don't want a red shirt because a guy like that could start for you. You know, where the red shirt comes in is if you don't know where you're going to find playing time, if you're unsure if he's physically ready, if you're unsure if his skills are going to translate, if you're unsure if you're even going to find him 5 minutes. With a guy like Isaiah Adams, this again, I'm not speaking for Coach Dawkins. I just think when you've got that much talent, when you got that great a motor, he's a Dawkins guy. Like that, those are the guys you want on the floor. You know, him backing up Colin Smith. How great is that if you substitute out a guy's potential all-conference player for a Florida Mr. Basketball? Like that's a great thing. You know, so I just don't think I can't see it. I can't see it happening.
We'll be back with more with Mike O'Donnell after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Let's return to our conversation with Mike O'Donnell.
All of this is obviously contingent on whether or not we have a full season, of course. Reality as it is with COVID-19, and obviously we're still in early July. A lot can happen between now and November, but we're still kind of, you know, things are, at least right now, not exactly trending in the right direction here in the state of Florida. You've talked to coaches, you've talked to players all throughout this offseason. You've got a sense of what's going on. What is the general sense of coaches and administrators that you know about what kind of a season we're going to have this year, assuming it goes off?
Well, first, most players want to play, but also most players don't really have an idea of what's going on. That's just the reality. Most coaches are wired like, hey, my finger got cut off, but I'm just going to put a Band-Aid on it, and I'm going to coach the next day, right? That's the way coaches are wired across basically every single sport, you know, especially football. This is just uncharted territory. Here's the way you've got to look at it, and this is talking with a lot of coaches, a lot of ops directors, a lot of administrators. It's not about the virus. And I say that to say, I'm not taking light of it. I mean, everybody's taking it seriously. It's about the logistics and the protocols that go along with how you operate inside of a pandemic, right? So here's a really good example. I won't name the team, but there's a team. I'll just say it's not UCF, okay? But there's a team that a lot of other schools are following. And right now, here is the setup. The player tests positive. That can be asymptomatic or symptomatic. It doesn't matter, right? Player tests positive. That player has to sit out, right, for 2 weeks. I'll come back to that in a second. So you got 2 weeks of quarantining. Then you have to contract trace the day before. Who is that player with? Okay, let's just use football as an example. If that player was with 12 of the football players, those 12 football players are now being asked to quarantine for a full week. So you've got 13 football players at least out a week. Okay, you can't have a season like that. And then if you follow even further, what a lot of schools are doing is after someone tests positive, you go through a 2-week additional conditioning quarantine to test your conditioning and make sure your respiratory levels are not dramatically or affected at all by testing positive for COVID-19. So you could potentially have, if that's the protocol for a lot of schools and conferences, you could have your quarterback out for 4 weeks. Even more important from a football standpoint, what if it's 2 offensive linemen? Imagine having 2 starting offensive linemen out for 2 weeks. 4 weeks. You can't do it if that's the protocol. Here's the problem with that. That's the extreme, but there's a good chunk of schools that are doing that. Notre Dame tests every week. They test their players every week. Arkansas tests players when only they're symptomatic. All of Arkansas Athletic they're just testing players who are only symptomatic. Here's the scary thing, and this is just being honest. If you ask me, like Jeff, if you said, Mike, put yourself as an 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid at UCF, you guys remember I wasn't very athletically gifted, but I just had to survive being the hardest working guy in the court. Like, that's just who I was. That's who I am. That's the way I played. And a lot of guys are wired like that, especially at the high level of, if I'm sick, I'm brushing it off. Guys, I memorized the concussion test so that I could get out of missing games and practices if I had concussion symptoms. Truly, I memorized the test. By the way, I had 5 concussions at UCF. Probably had like 8.
You had 5?
5, yeah. So I would never tell anybody if I was sick, ever. I didn't want to miss practice. I didn't want to miss a game. I was just wired to be the tough son of a gun because I was doing the thing that I loved, and nothing was going to interrupt me from doing the thing that I loved, not even the antibodies in my like that sounds stupid to say and think, but that's the way I was wired, and that's the way that thousands and thousands of guys are wired, right? So you look at a school like Arkansas, who is only testing for symptoms. I mean, are you kidding me? Absolutely. If I had symptoms, I wouldn't say I had symptoms because I wouldn't want to miss practice or a game. Think about the mental health of the athletes. And if we're trying to quarantine during the season, if you're trying to be alone in your dorm room for 2 weeks straight during the season, let's say you were healthy, you went all the way through it. We just got out of a pandemic. You might have been home for 3-4 months, not able to leave your house, especially if you're up in the Northeast. Now, if you're in Florida, you're being asked to quarantine at home. You're not supposed to be doing anything outside of going to the grocery store. And then you get back to campus. You start playing. You fall back in love with your teammates, playing the game, the coaching staff, the film sessions, the practices. And then I'm asymptomatic. I test positive, but I'm asymptomatic. You've got to sit out for 2 weeks. I would mentally really, really, really struggle with that because I think that what I would do is coming back from that 2 weeks of being quarantined, I would try to make up for those lost 2 weeks, which isn't the right thing to do. But I guarantee you that some of those initial practices and games would suffer because I'm thinking that from a competitor-only standpoint of where I can't let my team down again. I got to play even better than I did. And every time you try to do that, you never end up performing at your highest level because you're overthinking it and you're trying to do things out of your comfort zone. So that was a little bit of a rant, and I'm sorry. What I'm saying is I think it's really – we need a universal protocol for all of college athletics. We need it right now because we can't have schools sitting players out for 4 weeks and then other schools only testing when they're symptomatic. It also the reason why we need to have a universal protocol for I'm talking NCAA, just a complete oversight. You can't treat the athletes like a petri dish, man. Like you can't do it. Can't do it. You guys know me. I think we need to figure out a way to play. I just don't want to treat the athletes like a petri dish. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, it's the part that I get worried about is how are you going to justify to student athletes in any sport that, you go play for our entertainment here and run through all these protocols and do all the stuff that you're normally doing. as normal as possible. But, oh, by the way, we're not going to allow any other students on campus, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
I mean, if I was a student athlete, I'd be losing my mind at that. I'm like, wait a second, am I a student then?
Well, here's the reality. Is I think most athletes don't care if their students on campus. They want to play. Parents are the ones that will be the most concerned about this, and rightfully so. I would feel the same way. If your university is saying it's not safe to be on campus, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, what are we actually, what are we really doing here?
Right.
We have to trust. There has to come to a time where, you know, I'm in the middle on this, right? I mean, I think I tweeted this out the other day. Like, I don't believe this thing is a hoax by any stretch of the imagination, but I also don't believe this thing is the end of the world. Where's the middle ground? If science is telling us, and our leadership, the presidents of schools are saying it's not safe to have students on campus right now. I mean, what are we really doing here? You can't ask the athletes to do that. And that's where coaching, you know, the head coaches need to come in and say, okay, like let's pump the brakes here for a second and figure this thing out. But we could talk about this for days and weeks. The reality is every school in every state is operating differently.
Yeah. And that's
tough. That's tough. That's why I'm all for spring ball, football, basketball. I think there's something cool to be said to having just a huge spring season of all sports. Not to say there's being a guarantee of a vaccine, but if you gave leadership, if you formed a committee and you gave leadership, okay, what is it? Are we in June? We're in July. I don't even know, guys. You know, like the quarantine.
I don't either.
July, August. Okay, July, August, September, October, November, December. If you gave them 6 months to develop a plan, like presidential leadership, NCAA leadership, you can bash the NCAA all you want. I mean, those guys are still really smart. I've got to think in 6 months' time, you're going to be able to come up with a really great universal protocol to start this thing. Because if you don't play, you talk about a lot of money thrown around in college athletics. You're about to see a lot of programs completely dissipate.
Well, and Mike, and to back that, I mean, there's 347 basketball programs in Division I. I mean, a lot of focus on football, but that's 347. A lot of basketball programs are out there. And I think you mentioned this, and I want to give a shout out because you're on weekly with Mark Daniels on the Beat of Sports on 96.9, the game on iHeart in Orlando. And I think you brought up the idea you could actually play the season starting in February. Just expand on that idea that you brought up on the radio.
Well, it's just kind of like I'd like to just push it back. If we just don't know, if we're clueless, because none of us are doctors or scientists, I'm all for listening to scientists. But I refuse to cower in fear. So let me find the middle ground. The middle ground for me is I don't know what this is yet. I need more time to figure out what this is. So why don't we push it back to February at the earliest? You know, and go February, March, April, May, and you know, maybe get to May and do May Madness,
May
Mayhem. You know, change it up for one season. Football, the same thing, pushing it back just so we have more information. I just think more information gives us a better plan. You guys know me. We should figure out a way to play. I don't see a way in which we can play safely in the fall. I don't. We're all going to have to live with this virus forever. It's not going anywhere. We're all going to have to figure out a way to work and carry on our lives to do this. But I'm okay with figuring out a way to do it safely. Like, I don't just want to open up the floodgates and say, go crazy. Let's figure out a safe way to do it. Time gives us a plan. That's why I'd like to see go to February. I think football should get pushed back too to January and February. If you need to push back basketball even longer, and then people will say, you know, Lopez, people will say like, well, what are you going to do about the next season? You push back the time frame a couple months and you start a couple months later. Football and basketball are different. football needs more time to rest. You need more time to prepare, which is why you probably would want to start if you had a spring football season. Let's just use it as an example. Let's just say you started in February. Okay. If you started in February, help me out, guys, because you know college football better than I do. If you started in February, when would the season theoretically end?
So if you started early February and pretend like early February is the same as early September, like Labor Day. So you're talking February, March, April, end of April. Conference championship games would be beginning of May. So right around that, beginning of May. So you
beginning of May?
Yeah.
Beginning of May,
right around the beginning of May.
Yeah. You need to you'd need like a month off for the players, and you'd really want to push that back. Like if you normally start in September for college football, just push it back to the end of October. Push it back a month and a half, or even start in November. And then the following season, you'd be able to catch back up again. For basketball, you probably could start back on a normal time frame. You could start back in November like you would normally do, because the reality in basketball requires less rest and recovery than football does. Like, you really only need about 2 weeks off to get your body back to feeling healthy for basketball, especially, well, I'm just talking specifically college basketball. You really need about 2-3 weeks off before your body and soul is itching to get back out there on the court. And if you only need 2 or 3 weeks off, you come back to the second semester of summer school and you start normal time in the fall, it would be an easy transition for basketball to push it back.
Would you see, all right, let me ask, so this is the last one I want to ask you about COVID-19. Let's say Mark Emmert called you up tonight and said, Mike, you're my one-person coronavirus college basketball task force. What do you want the schedule to look like, and how would you set the protocols for all schools at the NCAA level?
I think any which way you look at it, this season is not going to be played normally. I think you'd condense the non-conference season. I think you'd probably you'd end up looking to cut your non-conference games in half. I think.
Could you see them cutting it to like just cut non-conference altogether, and we start January 1st possibly?
Well, a lot of low to mid-major schools wouldn't be able to survive because
that's true.
You need that money. You need that visiting team contract money. Mm-hmm. And I just can't. You guys know me. I think just the entire idea of Power 5 is just a complete joke, and it's just a sham. And it's like the most ridiculous elitist model of all time. And we talk about equality a lot in sports, and we should, and we need to, and we always have to be on the forefront. Okay, if you're all about equality, then you need to play non-conference games because there's a lot of schools that need that cash for their budget. Most schools, low to mid-major schools, rely on that for sometimes even half of their budget. Of going to play at Duke, going to play at UCF too.
Yeah.
It's important for that. I just don't know if we're trying to limit travel. I think cutting the non-conference in half would allow the limitation of some travel. It would allow the season to be a little bit more spread out in case you did need to rest your players more, whatever the case. And I think it would force teams to take non-conference even that much more seriously. And we're just talking college hoops, right, Jeff? Mm-hmm. You're not making me the czar for college football too, right? Because I couldn't bear that responsibility.
No. I'm gonna put Lopez in charge of that. But yeah, you're in charge for college basketball.
Dayton needs non-conference for seeding in the NCAA tournament, right? Yeah. Gonzaga needs non-conference, even though it's sad that they do. It's just that's the way it's set up. You need non-conference, but you can't have teams traveling all around. If I was in charge of the state of Florida for college basketball, there is absolutely no reason why every single Division I team in the state of Florida should play some type of non-conference tournament. It would completely if you don't want to do that, you just either have an inflated, lazy ego, or you're completely numb to the quality of basketball that tournament would bring. It would limit travel for teams, especially teams that for Stetson in North Florida, it costs a lot of money to travel across the country to play Missouri or at Kansas. I mean, it's costs a lot of money. If you could get, top 50 net quality games by staying in your state and just driving a couple hours, you should be all for it. And if you're Florida State, if you're UCF, if you're Florida, you want to play that only increases your net. I mean, playing an opening round game against Bethune-Cookman it's the same thing as if you're having Bethune-Cookman as your home opener. And then you have a chance to play Miami and Florida and UCF, Florida Gulf Coast, North Florida. I mean, we talk about teams. North Florida was one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country last season. You tell me they couldn't upset, and it just makes no sense not to do that. The problem why you can't have that universal, Jeff, is Florida's an outlier. Florida and California or North Carolina are outliers. Kansas can't have an 18 tournament in state.
Yeah, but you could maybe do you divide those into a couple of different states, right? So maybe Kansas and Nebraska form a mini region, something like that, right?
You could absolutely, just more travel.
Yeah, a little bit more, but you're right. I mean, there are 13 Division I teams in the state of Florida, and you're right that there's no reason you couldn't put together a decent non-conference.
Well, you could bubble it too.
Event, yeah, you could bubble it too.
You could bubble it, and I think it'd be awesome. I think it'd be awesome if you had a Sunshine State bubble tournament, non-conference tournament. I think it'd be great.
Mike, you and I have been on the Sunshine State tournament bandwagon for a while, and I think it would be so good for the state. It would be so good for the sport too. I'm good. I know you've got to get back to work here. Brian and Eric, did you have anything else you wanted to ask Mike?
No, I just want to say thank you, Mike. This is the most excited I've been in a while since we've been in this pandemic. I just hope we figure it out and get to that basketball season. You and I are basketball junkies. I just hope we get there somehow soon.
Amen.
Yeah, I think we will. I think we should. But I think we should do it safely.
Yeah. Well, here's to you and Annie and the kids staying safe. And here's to hopefully we'll have some more basketball coming our way. Are you going to be how close are you going to be following the NBA stuff? I know that we're all going to be watching as much as we possibly can on TV, but that's going to be an interesting situation. Have you seen the videos of the guys showing their hotel rooms, by the way?
No, I haven't seen those yet.
Some of them were they were posting pictures of some of the food they were getting as airline food, basically. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Well, welcome to the real world.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, but no, they'll be all right. They'll be all right. I feel like Disney will take care of them. ESPN will take care of them. Their teams will take care of them. But I think we're all foaming at the mouth for sports. I'm actually excited to not have fans in the stands. I think we're going to get to hear more chatter amongst the players. I think it's pretty cool. I think it'll be fun additional content.
I would love to have every player and every coach mic'd up.
Yeah, man.
And put it on a 10-second delay and just show us what the game is really like in the trenches. I mean, that would be a lot of fun.
That's the future. It's not going to be open the floodgates like that, but that's the future for sure.
That's not hoping. All right, Mike O'Donnell, where can people reach out to you, Mikey?
Well, you can always yell at me via Twitter. It's MOD, the number word, then the number 4, and then the word 3. So MOD for 3. You can always yell at me there. I'm happy to engage in polite and sarcastic conversation with anybody.
And also Star Wars content, obviously.
Sorry, you're breaking up there. Say it again.
I was going to say Star Wars content, obviously, or Marvel
Any
content.
day, man. Yeah, I'm always ready for that, man. I can't wait.
I mean, when's the next
coming out too?
I was going to say season 2 of The Mandalorian's coming out soon, right?
Oh my gosh! I just put it out already. I don't understand what you're waiting for, man. I don't even care if the effects are done. We need more content.
You're okay with seeing grid lines and stuff, right? It's totally fine.
I don't care. I don't care. Line it up. Let's go.
All right, Mike O'Donnell. It's good seeing you, bud. Take it easy. Stay safe, and we'll holler again at you soon. All right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We'll be back with more after this. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you. Follow us at UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com, where we are keeping an eye on, as what Mike O'Donnell was talking about in the previous segment, keeping an eye on what the latest news on coronavirus and what this may mean for the fall. Obviously, it's still early July, but some news dropped today. We were talking about it throughout the week. And is the Ivy League the canary in the coal mine here? Well, we found out today that the Ivy League has announced that all fall sports will be canceled. They will not have any sports, any Ivy League sports, until no earlier than January 1st. Now, it's not clear, guys, whether or not the Ivy League is planning on moving some of the fall sports to the spring, like football, for example. It feels like they left the door slightly ajar for that. But this might start of course, initially what happened was all the Power 5 reporters were coming out and saying this has no impact on what the major conferences are going to do. To which we said, yeah, okay. Because remember that the Ivy League was the first league to cancel the basketball tournament, and they were raked over the coals for about, 18 hours, Murph? And then finally everyone else pulled the plug. So I don't know. What do we make of this right now? I think we're starting to see like a slow motion version of that. It's not going to happen as quickly as it did with basketball, but it might happen. But it may indeed happen. What do you think here?
Yeah. First of all, this kind of became expected news once you sort of read the tea leaves and the insider reports of where everything was going. So yeah, to just clarify what you said, no sports before January 1st, 2021. They did say the fall sports could be played in the spring, but that'll be revisited at a later date. Winter and spring sports, they did not give a definite timetable or even said if they would go on as scheduled after the year. All student athletes would get extra year of eligibility, except if you're going into your fifth year of competition, in which, because it's the Ivy League and they don't allow red shirts like redshirt seniors to play on.
They also don't give out athletic scholarships too. We should clarify
so
too.
If you want to play for a fifth year, then you need to talk to your own university and have your own university give you a waiver. So I do think anybody who says that we shouldn't draw anything from this to football, I think is being really short-sighted, because yes, I understand the financial impacts are a total 180, depending, based on what the Ivy gets from football as opposed to like the power conferences, your power schools, and college football. But certainly they're taking note of this, if nothing else. They're absolutely taking note of this, and sort of seeing like, well, one conference did knock out all of fall sports for the entire rest of the year, which makes me think that if you are running a volleyball program or a soccer program at the FBS level, that is really giving you a real roadmap to sort of look at and see if it fits your own financial books. Because if the Ivy's done it, we've seen other conferences follow in basketball, and now I think with the non-revenue sports like soccer and volleyball, I think the same thing could happen in the power conference.
Eric, what do you think?
I agree with Murph, and Paul Feinbaum made this point on SportsCenter. He says the people that are taking note is the presidents of all these schools. Mm-hmm. Like, I think the egos with the Power 5 ADs, I wouldn't listen to them. Oh, yeah, we're not going to worry about it, But the presidents take notice, because let's be honest, every president of a university likes to think themselves as, hey, the school that I'm in is pretty darn smart. We got great education. Well, there's nothing higher than the Ivy League. So I think they take notice on this. So I agree with Murphy on that while I think you're going to hear a lot of grandstanding saying, well, that doesn't affect, we won't do automatically what they're going to do because, our situation's different. We have TV money. Yeah, it's easy to say that right now, but in about 3 to 4 weeks, you're probably going to come down to the same conclusion, more than likely, barring some drastic changes. I think Murph brought up a great point, Jeff, and let's bring this up here because this affects both of us. I know you in particular, and the Ivy League and the mainstream media is going to focus on football. I get all that. Right. The fact that
the fall sports for the Ivy League is out. That means that's one spot in the NCAA tournament is not available. The Ivy League will not participate. I've been told that the Patriot League's probably going to follow suit with the Ivy League. And let's be honest, I think other leagues like that are probably going to follow. How in the world, Jeffrey, are we going to have any sort of an NCAA tournament in soccer, volleyball, or even cross country, if you want to throw that in there at all this fall? I just don't see it. I don't see any way.
I agree with you. It'll either be at best, if that trend continues, and we don't know for sure obviously right now, but if that trend continues, I wouldn't be surprised to see the NCAA at best truncate the tournament and just not award those bids. Or, we may have a situation in all sports in the fall, just like, old school football where we announce a national champion based on polls or some sort of other formula, because they're going to be very reluctant, especially if the virus is still raging late into the fall. They're going to be very reluctant to bring everybody from everywhere else. We all talk about all the time about travel for the NCAA tournament in every sport, and how much of a logistical lift that is every year during a normal year, let alone when all of this is going on. I'm with you. I don't see how they are going to be able to formulate that. We might see polls determining national champions in some of those other sports, don't you think?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, there's two fronts on this. I do agree on one thing. The Ivy League, I've talked to people, I don't think they're going to bring football back. I don't think they're going to bring fall sports back in the spring because they don't make money. Actually, they lose money from football. Their money maker actually is basketball. That's where they're going to get hurt is basketball in general. The biggest question for all these schools, and we'll get back to the football, but because everybody wants to worry about that, I think these bigger conferences aren't going to just shut it down right away. I think this is going to be a delayed postponement. I could see a scenario where the bigger conferences will maybe scrap the non-conference and see what happens maybe by October. And then if it doesn't, they're going to try to push it into the spring. The bigger question I have is, can these athletic departments as a whole, and I know there's differences, but as a whole, can they actually have a spring where you have your spring sports and football? Let's say that's the direction this is going, because I think we all kind of feel like this is the direction it's going. And Danny White said this many weeks ago, so this is not, I think Danny White may have seen this coming. So can an athletic department handle having football, having basketball, men's and women's, spring sports, and soccer, volleyball, and cross country? I think that is the biggest question that no one's going to bring up because everybody's focused on football, and I get it because of the finances, but that's the number one question is, can a university and the NCAA handle all of that, or are the fall sports maybe going to be out of luck? That's the biggest question in the coming weeks.
It may be a case-by-case basis because, as you guys know, I mean, when we talk about Division I outside of football, that's 300-some schools. And some of them could pull it off because of, like I said, they don't have football. They don't have to worry about all those resources. There are, and I do think that the larger, richer schools in Division I can pull all that off if they move it to the spring. I think once you start getting to like your Sun Belts, your, just like we talked about before, your Conference USA schools, your FCS schools in particular, it's going to be a real heavy lift for some of those schools to be able to pull off football in the spring and everything else too. A school like UCF can say, you know what, let's do it. We'll figure it out. It's going to be a little wild, but maybe we won't have quite the staffing that we would have normally. Of course, you don't have if you play with limited or no fans in the stands, that may free up some staff in terms of marketing, game day operations, those kinds of things. But to work other sports when that happens. But it may be a university by university basis. We're going to see. And I think this is one of those things where the NCAA is going to have to try and step up here because what sort of is the NCAA able to facilitate financial relief for some of those programs? Are they going to lower their, make some exceptions for certain standards in terms of travel? Travel is going to be a big expense, obviously. Are they going to lower the requirements for certain programs in terms of travel parties and things like that, scheduling and whatnot? It's going to be a really, really tough lift. Athletic programs right now are literally walking on the moon as far as figuring all this out. And I don't know. If you thought the last 6 months was wild, wait till you see the next 6 months. This is going to be crazy.
And scheduling is going to be a big, interesting dilemma. I mean, just from a regional standpoint, and let's be honest, I personally think if all the sports are moved to the spring, I think they're all going to be shortened seasons. I don't see a scenario where football is played 12 games starting in February. Do you, Murph? I mean, do you not agree with that? Or do you think they're going to try to squeeze in 12? How can you justify saying, yeah, we're going to play 12 games between February and June and then come back in the fall?
Yeah, right. No, I think, we hit a little bit on that with Mike O'Donnell and his suggestion of playing only conference games, as you've heard many people say, because you would then allow them a little more time off in the offseason, and maybe you could have a normal fall 2021 football season if it comes to that. No, you could not. I don't think you could have a 12-game season plus a bowl game starting in February.
Yeah, I agree. I just, at the FBS level, I really don't think that we're going to see bowl games. I'm highly skeptical of. Yeah, I know you're heartbroken, Eric. I really think we're going to see. I'll be shocked if we see conference championship games. I just wonder if the FBS is going to pull out all the stops to try and have a 14 playoff at some point. Right
now?
Right. I mean, they would do it without the conference championship games, and those would be the last three games of the year and determine a champion, because they know that'll be big bucks, right? So
yeah, but you're gonna have to everybody's gonna have to get a haircut at least. I mean, that's really should be the goal, is make sure you just get a hair. You just take a haircut and not have to shave your head. That would be my advice to all the athletic departments. Don't worry about what you're losing. Just try to keep your hair at least. That would be the metaphor.
There, I really thought Eric was telling ADs to get an actual haircut and wasn't using that as a metaphor.
Right. Well, you know what? That is a remarkable segue, Eric Lopez, because speaking of haircuts, some programs are getting them. Some of them sort of UCF adjacent. First, the big news that came down today, Stanford, long renowned for their athletic prowess. I forget what the percentage, like they have the highest percentage of their student body that is student athletes. And Stanford takes extreme pride in the number of sports it offers. They are cutting 11 of their 36 sports. Now, most of these sports and I'm trying to pull up the list here. Most of these are not a lot, not ones that you're like, wow, that's going to be a huge hit. But let me list them off. Let me list them off here. So, men's and women's fencing, field hockey, lightweight rowing, men's rowing, co-ed and women's sailing, squash, which I couldn't tell you how it's played even if you showed it to me, synchronized swimming, men's volleyball, and wrestling. Stanford is one of the few programs that has held on to wrestling all these years. Was a much bigger sport back in the day across the NCAA. Now it's not. But that's they announced that they are cutting those sports following the 2020-2021 season. After this, that's it. And they're firing all the coaches and the I mean, you're talking 200 plus athletes, 20 some coaches. And this is something that I said this before, like Stanford takes tremendous pride in offering all of these sports, right? I mean, they consider themselves, kind of like, the whole, they take that well-roundedness very seriously. And so for them to pull the plug on these sports, I think is a really big story and is, possibly indicative of what we might see coming down the pike. Now, granted, they're still well over the NCAA minimum for sports, but that's you talk about taking a haircut. That's a haircut right there, right?
It is, and men's volleyball. First of all, those sports you mentioned, Stanford had won a combined 20 national championships in those sports.
Yeah, these aren't bottom feeder sport. Now, granted, I don't know how many other schools compete in squash, but
no, but
they're still there.
No, but guys, I mean, where do you think all these Olympians we see every 4 years in these sports come from? I mean, they don't just pop out of the air. Murph, you know this, living in the West Coast. I mean, and credit to our friend Colin Sherwin, who tweeted about this. Men's volleyball right now is in critical shape as far as the college game now, because Stanford was a big-time program in men's volleyball. That's where you develop players to play in the U.S. national team that competes in the Olympics. Mm-hmm. Well, Colin tweeted this out earlier. Volleyball, there's now only 22 Division I men's volleyball programs. We're down to 22 and 25 in Division II. That is an insane low number. And they only give out like 4.5 scholarships per sport, according to Colin, per team. So it's not like it's the most expensive sport in the world, but it's disappearing. Why? Because a lot of schools have partly Title IX, but a lot of schools have chosen, we just don't have room, or we don't want or don't need men's volleyball. Some schools have chosen to go the beach volleyball route or other sports. So men's volleyball, you can make the argument as far as college is dying. And if that dies, you wonder what the future of U.S. volleyball in a national stage. I mean, think of Karch Karai in those days watching the Olympics. Is those days numbered?
Yeah.
That's so when people snicker at that, this has a rippling effect out there in the West Coast, Murph, where those Pac-12 schools take a lot of pride in producing athletes to go to the Olympics.
No, I mean, absolutely. I don't really know what I can add to it. It was a little jarring to see a school of that high of standard cull that many sports. I understand they're down to 25, so it's still well above that limit, like you said, Jeffrey. But still, when you cut 11 sports that have won, and so many have won national championships and have turned out Olympic athletes and top level, athletes in their sport across the nation, it's a wake up call. And it's another one in a series of wake up calls we've been having for 6 months.
Well, right. And this is a result. And we keep talking about the Power Five. Oh, they'll be fine. I keep telling you guys, the Pac-12 is not as great of a shape as people think. Their TV deal with the Pac-12 network, that hasn't gone smoothly. They don't have the packages like the SEC or the Big Ten or now the ACC. You want to talk about what are the as I've been told, the Pac-12 is going to make sure they have some sort of football at some point in this calendar year. Don't assume that the Power Five will be just fine a year or 2 years from now. There's could be a rippling effect that the Pac-12 could be in trouble, and I think this Stanford news is just the beginning. I don't think they will be the last Pac-12 school that we're going to talk about dropping sports maybe at this ratio.
Well, ancillary to that is the Pac-12 CEO group is rumored to be thinking about buying out the contract of Commissioner Larry Scott and basically ending his tenure early. So there might be some serious movement again on the Pac-12, like you were talking about. What is that going to look like in the coming months? I don't know. We'll have to see. There's been some other hair cutting closer to UCF's orbit. ECU's athletic director sent an open letter out to ECU fans saying that this is a quote from the letter. It's likely we'll have capacity restrictions at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium for football, whether that be 50%, 25%, or less. They've sold approximately 10,500 season tickets. That doesn't include their student ticket allocation. Basically, he's laying the groundwork for them to only allow season ticket holders, maybe not even that many. In addition, mandatory 5-day furlough for all athletic staff members, including coaches, 5 days of leave without pay, just to try and get the budget back in line. Now, I know they say 5 days, but that's basically 1 week of pay for every 1 week of pay that they're clawing back. But ECU is showing some signs of being in financial trouble. Meanwhile, Houston, 12 2021 fiscal year beginning September 1st for the University of Houston, they are getting there's going to be a reduction of, this is according to Joseph Duarte, 77.5% reduction to Houston's athletics total operating budget for the fiscal year, a reduction of 18 athletics administrative and support staff positions. So 18 people are getting laid off. Budgets across the Houston administration are being slashed by 10% across the board. Sports programs will each have a 5% budget reduction, and they are telling the coaches, schedule locally. Do more regional non-conference travel schedule. Basically, bus, don't fly. Houston, being in Texas and in the South, can do that, obviously, but this is starting to get a little scary now. Houston, we thought, was actually in pretty good shape. I mean, they spent all the money on their coaches.
Some would argue that's the problem. You probably shouldn't have spent so much on the Ogres.
Maybe that is. On the other hand, ECU, we know, has been in some financial trouble for some time. And now that seems to begin to be coming home to roost.
You know what part of the problem is this? Because I know the ECU situation very well. Because Terry Holland used to be the athletic director. Remember, used to be the former Virginia men's basketball coach.
Mm-hmm.
I got to know him a little bit. They hosted a conference softball championship 9 years ago, and he actually, I know I'm bragging here, he gave me a tour of the football stadium. You've been there, Murph. It's a beautiful stadium.
They were doing construction when I was there.
Well,
Dowdy Ficklin is, I will say, it is one of the best stadiums up there in the America, no doubt about it. But go ahead.
Correct. But part of the problem that ECU ran themselves into, because I remember I talked to Terry about, and I talked to a lot of people at ECU, they had all these sports. And why? Because during that time frame, guys, they were trying to put themselves in a position to get an invite to the Big East. That was the pitch. We could be a Big East program. And Houston, they've spent all this money because they're trying to put themselves in a position to say, hey, we could be part of the Big 12. Well, the problem is neither of them got what they wanted out of the deal.
Well, technically ECU did, just like UCF. It's just not the way they were hoping.
No, but that's a big difference. And as a result, add to the fact that ECU football has struggled immensely because this was all based. That's why they're losing a ton of money at ECU. So this kind of goes back, and this is the problem. These athletic departments want to cry poor and this or that. Look at how they're spending their money. When you spend your money, and you want to justify because of the goal or a pipe dream, we want to be this or that. What happens if you don't get that?
Well, they put it all on the credit card.
Well, it's about time. It's getting close to paying time now. That's the problem with these schools. And look, that's why. If I'm a school that's not in the Power 5, let me ask you both this. What is the purpose of playing in the fall with no fans? What's the benefit?
Depends on what my television contract is.
Okay, I mean, you tell me. If you're an American, what do you really, is it worth playing in the fall with no fans, or are you better off waiting till the spring and see how it looks and play in the spring, hopefully with fans in the building? Worst case scenario, you play with no fans. What's give me the pluses and minuses in that? Why the urgency to playing in the fall to me should not be there if you're not in the Power 5, in my opinion.
Well, there might be some Power 5 schools that would probably struggle without some of that gain. I think if you're in the American, I think there's varying degrees of can we survive it. UCF, I think, could. USF, I think, could not. ECU, I think, would have a lot of problems with it. Houston might be okay. That's kind of where, I mean, we've said this time and time again, the American is where that gradient is, right? So I personally, if I'm standing there in Danny White's position, I would say, look, I want to try and get as much revenue as I possibly can for this fiscal year. So if there's a possibility that I could have a sold-out stadium or close to sold-out stadium in the spring rather than no fans in the fall, give me the spring. Because at least I'm going to get the extra concessions, I'm going to get the parking, I'm going to get the tickets, I'm going to get all the the merchandise, all the goodies that come with football season. And also, there's going to be a sort of honeymoon period, and I think there's probably going to be quite a bit of attention paid to the end. Plus, we got a good team coming back. But if you're ECU, I don't know. That's kind of a toss-up. How good of a team do you think you're going to get? And that's where it comes down on the coaches. Like, your coaches got to be honest with you. Like, is this a rebuilding year or not?
But honestly, though, I'm going to be honest, though. I think most athletic departments this year could care less what the win-loss record is. They want to get games in to get some of that money back. I really do. I don't think this is about, hey, can you win 9 games? No, it doesn't matter. Get the games in. Brian, you tell me. What do you think? Am I wrong in thinking? And look, O'Donnell mentioned it, and he kind of influenced me on this. Is it the end of the world if you wait a few months, 6-7 months in the spring? Maybe you get some fans in. Maybe things are better. At worst, they're not, and you're still in the same situation you're in now. But what's the negative in waiting? I just don't feel there's a need to be forced the issue here.
Because you want to get that money sooner than later. Like, that's kind of all that really boils down to. You're scared that in 6 months it may not be different, and now we're really screwed. So let's try to push through as much as we can and try to be like on our P's and Q's with everything and see if we can actually pull this off, even though it's highly, highly, highly unlikely. But we could if we shut it all down, we're taking the risk of falling back to spring with no other fallback plan past that. Because if we can't play in spring, now we're talking about sports being shuttered all over the place. So it's really just kind of a selfish but financially driven point of view of like, look, these departments need money. Football drives most of these departments anyway. Season's coming up. Let's see if we can play it. Should we wait 6 months to see if this virus cools down and we're in a better situation like globally? Possibly, but if it's not, then we're really screwed. So let's try to do as best we can right now. Unfortunately, what that looks like right now is just a lot of strong-headed ADs kind of like driving into the wind. But we'll see. Obviously, we'll see here in about 3 or 4 weeks, probably by the end of July, we'll have a lot of news on FBS level football as far as what they're going to do. Because, guys, spring training, I got baseball in the mind for some reason. Fall camp, as far as like full padded practices, are starting August 6th, August 7th for most teams. And so you can't go into there without having a plan for the fall. So we're going to have some major news by the end of this month, I would imagine. But right now, it does look like the only reason why you want to move forward is because we need this money to prop up the rest of our programs. And if we fall back toward the spring and nothing changes, then we're really screwed.
Well, I think you described the Power 5 mindset there. Like if you're the Big Ten, for example, if you're the Big Ten and you know that the weather in the spring is not ideal for you, I think the Big Ten, Murph, I think you just described everybody thinking in the Big Ten. I think they're the ones that would be the most willing to say, you know what, we're just going to play. And if we don't have to have fans, so be it, because we got to play now.
What about the MAC? Because they're usually like, we don't have any fans anyway.
Well, and that's the other point, Jeff. That's a great point. I could see some conferences say, we're just not going to play, period. We're not going to play in the fall. We're not going to play in the spring because we actually save money. Like if you're the MAC, you lose money. And that's what's so dynamic.
Well, no, the MAC. About this. The MAC, if the MAC doesn't provide that inventory to ESPN, that's what really hurts them, don't you think?
Not really, because here's their problem. Their money maker is the only way. Well, they don't make money, but the only way they get some money is buy 2 things. Buy-in games. In other words, when they go to Ohio State and they go to Michigan. Well, if that's gone, then you're not going to make any money. And then because your TV packages are usually those Tuesday, Wednesday night games. And I don't ESPN's going to give you that slot in the spring when there's other sports going on. So if you're the MAC, if you're not going to get those non-conference paychecks, what's the point of having a football season at any point? So that's why every conference is different. And every school, to be honest, has a different situation. That's what's unfortunate is that this is very complicated. Murph's right. That's why I don't see anybody as far as the major conferences doing anything. If anything, they'll postpone the season. They'll look, hey, we'll just scrap the first couple of weeks. We'll push it back. I don't see them making any decisions similar to the Ivy League that that aggressive. I don't see them making that aggressive of a decision.
Well, one of the other things that we have to bear in mind here is that these ADs are posturing themselves in order so that they can still get those season ticket deposits and that sponsorship money too for the year. Okay, that's the other thing I think that kind of gets missed here. Like, for example, it's just like with the college presidents over the last few months saying, "Oh, definitely we're going to open campus. We will have classes in the fall." And now all of a sudden, there's the dominoes are starting to fall, saying, "No, actually, we're going to have virtual class." I think the Ivy League also announced that they were going to have virtual. So because what they're trying to do is get those deposits into the bank account, and if you can get those deposits, at least you got something to work with here, right? I mean, and it's shady business, right?
Oh,
but
listen, but all of this is motivated by economics. I mean, let's not kid. I mean, the NBA is not coming back and playing in a bubble at Disney World to have 22 teams because for the goodness of the competition. They're doing it for economic reasons.
Well, they're doing it to fulfill their contractual obligations to ESPN and Turner. That's what they're doing.
Correct. It's called financial motivation. All of this is financial motivation. That's why I respect the Ivy League and what they're doing, because they're not driven by that. That's not a thing to them.
Well,
so,
of course, because they don't have a television contract like that.
But
they do have a TV contract with ESPN that where they basically have an Ivy League network and they put all that stuff on ESPN streaming. But is that the bulk of the pie in terms of their athletic revenue? No, it's not.
No, basketball is probably their biggest money maker there. But look, there's something to be said that maybe maybe they have their priorities correct, and everybody else, maybe all of us, the rest of us, don't. And maybe
it's also nice when you have a $25+ billion endowment that you can rely on. I know people are going to yell at me and be like, "Actually, endowments." Well, actually, your endowments don't go toward athletic programs. Listen, are you really going to tell me that the Ivy League is a bunch of poor institutions? I don't think so.
But
I mean, also I want to butt in there with the last thing Elo said, because most of it's been correct, is the priority that the Ivy League has right, and to insinuate that college football doesn't have their priorities in order. Let's not be fooled. The priority, as you said, is money. So that is the priority. Their priority is in order. They're looking after their money. If you go, well, we want to look after our student athletes first, that's hilarious, because the NCAA laughs at that. So no, their priority is in order, because it's like saying the system is broken. Like, no, this broken system is working fine. It's just really flawed. Right. So yeah, I just want to say, like, everything that the college football wants, everything that college football prioritizes, that's on their mind right now. That is strictly a financial point of view, and that sounds, obviously, people in higher ups and ADs, presidents, say that's really callous, but you can't. There's no way. If you gave them a truth serum, they would disagree with that, because this makes their entire departments and the universities run.
Right, you're exactly right, and it's harsh to say, but, and I hate saying it, but it's true. It's like, from my perspective, the reason why the Ivy League, quote, has their priorities straight is because they can afford to have their priorities straight.
Their priority actually is not money.
And good for them. Good for them. I mean, that's why they're smart and we're not. Except the Major League Baseball.
Not everyone who's getting into an Ivy League school, I hate to say it, is the sharpest pencil in the box.
Eric,
I will say that.
Did you just say that Major League Baseball is smart?
That's correct. Keith Olbermann backs up Jeff's point. He has mentioned numerous times that the commissioner of Major League Baseball, Brian, as you know very well, went to Brown University, Ivy League school.
Okay, no. Going to an Ivy League school doesn't make you smart. I think I think Bob Manfred is actually proving that in real time.
Yes. Correct. That was Keith Olbermann's point.
He's not the only one. Are there smart people who go to Ivy League institutions? Yes, there are. I know many of them. Are there some not smart people who go to Ivy League institutions? Absolutely.
Maybe they had people maybe they paid people to take the SATs for them.
Easy. We did have a scandal on that recently.
No. Listen, don't go. Listen, Eric. I know you have a crush on Aunt Becky, but no. Listen, She deserved what she got.
Don't forget Felicia
and
Huffman.
Felicity Huffman. You're right.
Felicia Huffman. I loved her on Sports Night. Great TV show. Feel free to binge that here when we have no college sports in the fall. Now let me one more thing, because me and Murph brought this up many episodes ago, and now everybody's jumped on this, and I'm kind of annoyed now with it. The fact that, well, the NFL ain't going to move their draft, which we can't have the spring. Yes, you can.
Sure you can.
Murph can back me up on this. For many years, Major League Baseball did a draft during the college baseball season. Not only during the college baseball season, but during their postseason. So I don't want to hear anybody in football complaining about, well, they're going to have the NFL draft in April. We can't have a spring football. Look, accept it for what it is. Yes, some of your marquee players aren't going to participate in the spring because they're going to get ready for the NFL draft. Good for them. Tough luck. Get over it. Stop whining about it.
I totally agree. I hear people talk about how, they don't want to hold it in the spring because that's when the draft is, and you don't want to have players bowing out of football. Like, that'd be a really tough decision for them. Like, no, it would not be a tough decision for them.
No, it's an easy decision.
Easy decision. Look, if you know you're going to be a first or second round pick, and all of a sudden it's like week 8, and you want to take care of your own personal interests, go ahead. Good for you. People will absolutely lose their minds because it's not like what we've done in college football. But again, people have to understand, like these kids have to put their own interests first, especially when millions of dollars are on the table for them.
Yeah.
So if we have a draft in April, and that's like week 7 of the college football season or whatever it is, I have no idea. And these players decide to hang it up because they've got millions of dollars waiting for them in the first or second round. Good for them. Go get yourself your bag.
It's funny. It's funny how people clutch their pearls when college football players all of a sudden decide to become capitalists.
We hate college athletes having any sort of initiative.
Well, and that's why I think a lot of schools secretly don't want to play in the spring because they know they're going to lose a good number of starters from their team for various reasons. Guys that want to.
That's another reason why we're pushing forward here. And
isn't that why we give out 85 freaking scholarships?
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you. Yeah. So I don't want to hear about lack of depth or any of that stuff. Thank you. You got 85 scholarships. Hey, maybe now you get to use it for a change.
Right.
So I'm all for that. By the way, Murph, I believe I'm looking this up since you asked. The NFL draft is scheduled for April 29th through May 1st. Which, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that the weekend of the Oscars now and their new date?
Oh, God.
I did not see that one coming.
It's actually the week before.
Oh, you dodged
it is?
that.
Okay.
Baby.
Well, no. Even if that was the case, like the Oscars would have been Sunday night. The draft would have been over by then.
No, you don't No, Jeffrey, you don't know. I've been with Murph. There's a big preparation here on Oscar Day. He's got to get he's got to get his picks in. He's got to know where he's going to watch it from. I mean, this is not just, hey, I'm just going to tune in and watch. This is a big day for Murph. It's one of your biggest days of the year, isn't it, Murph?
Absolutely. I mean, this is not even a joke. It's kind of up there with like MLB opening day, which is really stupid because MLB opening day should matter a lot more than the Oscars, which is just well, I could use a very vulgar term for what it is, but it doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. It's just, a happy, friendly, like, let's congratulate our friends for faking their own feelings for 2 hours. And so I understand, like, it doesn't really matter. But for me, I understand it's absurd, and yet I love it. I can't wait to see what the protocols and what the breakdown is, because this year in film has been so screwed up. I've literally watched, I think, 4 movies that came out this year. Or no, I've watched 4 movies that came out this year during quarantine. Like, are we gonna have Sonic the Hedgehog up for Best Picture? Like, probably not.
Wow.
But I will say, I again, this is like my
Jim Carrey, Best Supporting Actor for
I know.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
It's anyway.
What if he wins it? Oh my God!
By the way, this brings up Murph. I'm going to ask this question now because our friend Trace, him and I were talking. Hope he's enjoying his vacation. We were wondering about this question, Murph. If you can only pick one of the 2 following for the next year, guaranteed, you're going to have this will be original content. not like old games or old movies. You can only pick one of the two for the next year, guaranteed, no interruptions from coronavirus or anything. Would you pick a baseball season uninterrupted by this virus, or new movies to come out uninterrupted? Which one would you pick if you can only pick one?
Oh, can I go into the theater?
I know which one I'd pick.
If I can go into the theater, I'd probably pick movies.
Woo-hoo!
Wow, I'm shocked. Yeah. I'll tell you, I would pick baseball because I feel like writing in new movies has gotten really stale. We have way too many remakes, way too many sequels, and we need to get our writers and producers back back grinding out new ideas and new scripts here.
Jeff, there are plenty of new ideas and new scripts. They're all very independent. You just got to go look at independent films. It's a fantastic medium. The reason why I chose movies is because, as we say, like with baseball, like every game is different. You'll see something you've never seen before in every game. Well, yeah, that's kind of true, but most baseball games do follow a certain script, and they are kind of repetitive, and they kind of blend together after a while. Baseball is not an event spectator sport. It sort of just blends together, and you have these moments that are punctuated of excitement. Each movie for 2 hours can be its own work of art, not just in script, but the way it's shot, the way it's set, the music it uses. So it can be every movie can be a different thing, even if it's covering similar topics. So because of that variety, and I think that novelty, I would rather go for a full year of uninterrupted movies if it meant I had to sacrifice a baseball season.
Wow. But now you said as long as you can go to a movie theater?
Yeah, I love theaters. I've watched, I don't know, more than about 100 films or so in the last 4 months, and I have no problem sitting at home and watching it. And I've watched 20 films that probably should be on the big screen. I've watched it at home. It's been fine. But there really is something about that whole theater dynamic of when the lights dim and everything is sort of you really just get locked in. I get really locked in with this. Oh, I love it. So yeah. Since you picked movie theaters, that means you're bypassing on following Danny Winkler, who's with the Chicago Cubs, Murph, on the 60-man roster. This was we found this out after our last episode, so this is what's called the segue here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Danny Winkler, UCF alum, with the Cubs, and what impact could he have on the Cubs? I don't know yet. I'm pretty sure he is there only for depth. The Cubs bullpen isn't great, but again, he is a guy that they're really relying on as a depth piece more than anything else. If a bunch of guys go down with injury or get coronavirus, you've seen in all these player pools, people are loading up on pitchers for good reason, because in short season, when guys may not be stretched out, and you might have a higher incidence rate of injury, you need to have as many pitchers as possible. So I think that's why he's on the 60-man. But yeah, we missed that last week when we talked about Dylan Moore and Drew Butera and Bo Taylor. But yeah, so we have 4 UCF alums in the 60-man player pool. We'll see what happens here. If baseball can survive the next 14 days is very, very problematic and iffy at this point.
What's more likely? Ben Lively throws a pitch in the KBO, or the MLB season starts in the next couple of weeks?
I think Ben Lively's back before the 23rd of July. So, I mean, not to say that baseball could start on time, but I think Ben Lively's back within the next 2 weeks.
There you go.
All right.
What happened to Winkler, by the way? He was really good at Atlanta, I thought, out of the bullpen. It just he was pretty good there. He had a couple of years there where I thought he was pretty good as a reliever.
No, he was very good. He had 1 year where he was basically unhittable. It was a little bit of a fluke year, just kind of got some lucky contact rates. But no, I mean, it's just relievers, man. The turnover is amazing. I mean, you talk about it every year, this closer is great. That closer can be gone within 2 years. The turnover rate for relievers, effective relievers in Major League Baseball is still, massive, which is why you have more money than ever being paid to relievers, because those guys are huge commodities if you're really good.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, I'm glad we picked up on Danny Winkler. So we got 4 guys in Major League Baseball. We got a couple guys in MLS, was kicked off tonight. Actually kicked off as we're recording. Orlando City getting the first win of the MLS's back tournament, beating Inter Miami. 2-1.
Scoring a goal in the 97th
minute. Yeah. So we've talked about, obviously, last week's show we had Warren Creval, or not last week, earlier this week, I should say, Warren Creval from Philadelphia Union joining us. We're thankful for Warren. Make sure you listen to that show. Sean Johnson, obviously, is back. And a number of other players with USL. But interestingly enough, Eric Lopez, you informed me today, one of them is not available for any team. Is that right?
Correct. We talked so much on that episode, Crevel, about Cal Jennings, who was a first-round draft pick in the super draft, not just a draft. Remember, it's a super draft by the FC Dallas. Well, it turns out, past the deadline, he didn't sign with FC Dallas. They didn't come to terms, and I think the reason, from what I've been told since, is he wanted to weigh all his options. It's kind of like, because if he signed, he was probably just going to start out at the USL level. I think he just wanted to see what his options were elsewhere, whether it be internationally,
like in Europe, right?
Right, or anywhere else. And so Cal Jennings was not going to be a part of FC Dallas. Is not a part of the USL as of now, and remains to be seen what he decides to do with his career and moving forward. So that's kind of an interesting story. Of course, Jonathan Dean was drafted with Orlando City, but he's no longer with that organization either. So it's kind of weird, the MLS. It's kind of like the baseball draft where a team takes you, but if you don't come to terms after a certain deadline, you could become a free agent too. So it's a very unique situation. So we'll have to see where Cal goes. So hopefully he finds a spot that he's happy with, and we see him on the pitch somewhere soon.
Well, we were initially looking at the possibility that maybe he would get out there, but I guess that's not going to happen with FC Dallas. We just, it's a bummer. But wherever he lands, I hope that, what a time for that to happen where, all of a sudden the virus hits and he's without a spot. Well, hopefully he's able to land somewhere in Europe. I know obviously there's travel restrictions, but I don't know. We need to see Cal Jennings on a pitch somewhere, man, because that guy is way too good.
But he might decide to sit it out. Which wouldn't be the worst idea in the world with everything that's going on. That's the thing. He's still young, so he might, he might not be in a rush with everything that's going on, like you mentioned, to go anywhere or sign anywhere right now and be forced to do anything. So who knows? It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. But that's the story on Cal Jennings in his deal. But you mentioned the other guys. There are other guys in the USL and things like that. That gets going as well. So hope for everybody does well and stays healthy.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up those names because UCF men's soccer actually tweeted them out too. In the USL, we talked about obviously Sean Johnson with NYCFC, Warren Creval with Philadelphia Union. Jonathan Dean is playing for the Memphis 901 squad in USL. They begin play on July 15th. Kevon George, who we mentioned before, he's playing with the Charlotte Independents of USL. Romario Williams, they'll actually face off against each other on July 22nd. Romario Williams is with Miami FC at the USL level, and of course Haji Barry with the North Carolina squad. They play at Tampa Bay in USL action on July 17th. So 6 guys in professional soccer, 2 of them in MLS that we're looking forward to seeing, and we hope they stay healthy and stay productive. You'll see some of those USL matches you'll actually see on ESPN too, which is kind of cool. So again, that's a good thing to see that we're getting some sports back and seeing some UCF guys out there. That should be a lot of fun. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Eric, we're working more on your top one. We're coming down the stretch here with the top 100 male athletes and the top 80 female athletes, and then we're going to get to coaches pretty soon here.
Yeah, we're down to the 30 to 21 range on the female and the male. We're getting down there closer to unveiling the top 10. Who knows? Maybe next week we might do a recap of the rankings there. Murph might critique all my rankings. That could be. He could be like Siskel and Ebert, just critique my rankings.
We are causing a stir on Twitter with all of these rankings too, Eric.
It is. It's been a lot of chatter. So I'm appreciative. Some not. That's okay. That's the beauty. It's got chatter, and I've enjoyed looking back in the past instead of looking at the present. What's everything's going on. So I haven't been very appreciative of it. I've enjoyed it. and we'll see how the conclusion comes out. Cal Jennings, will he be in the rankings? You'll have to tune in, find out. See, we got some numbers to go. So, yeah, the male and the female rankings coming down to this conclusion here in the coming days. And then, as you mentioned, after that, we're going to unveil the top 40 head coaches in UCF history and then the top 30 UCF assistant coaches of all time.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun. Murph, what do you got? What do you got coming up?
I think that's what we should do next week is just have a podcast of me asking Eric about his rationale behind the rankings. I mean, it's probably better than anything else we might have next week.
Yeah, now that you've said that, something's going to drop, and then look what's going to happen.
Well, I hope not. I've got it here on my script, Murph. We're going to unveil our top 10 Central Florida sports editors of all time.
Ooh.
And you're in the mix. Who's going to be number one? Is it you? Is it Patrick Brewer? Or is it a Trace Trauco, who was a sports editor in the 90s? Or Tony Mejia? Maybe Tony Mejia.
I win the award for sports editor of the Central Florida Future who ran the most wire copy to fill space. Award I win.
Did people just bail on you, Murph? I'm sorry to hear that. That's...
No.
By the way, they bailed on you. By the way, salute to Murph, who has a great article on the C.J. Walker.
Yes.
Going to UCF. That thing has done big numbers. A lot of great feedback there, Murph. You did a great job breaking down that decision process. Was fantastic. So salute to you on that.
Yes, I also wanted to thank you for your lead where you talked about, we don't talk about recruiting a lot in these parts, but we'll make an exception.
We don't. I'm just talking about the truth there. Jeffrey, we literally write about 2 or 3 or 4 recruiting pieces a year.
I know. It's because I hate recruiting. I mean, if you guys want to write more about recruiting, I mean, I'll let you. I'm fine with it. I just can't stand it.
I'm not a huge fan. I mean, again, we write about it on signing day or leading up to signing day, but other than that, because it's not official, it's really hard to write about.
Yeah, I mean, if one of you guys wants to become a recruit, Nick, I'm all for it. Just don't drag me into it. I don't want it. I don't want to do anything on it. And fans, if you want recruiting news, let us know. And I'll tell someone else to go do it. I mean, it's fine.
Anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed the lead, and I don't believe that was facetious in any way.
No, it was perfectly accurate.
No, it really did. It did a lot of. I mean, people. It did big numbers. It was very, and it's that look, it's not every day you get a 5-star.
That's the reason why I think it does big numbers, because it is an historic moment for the program, landing a 5-star player for the first time ever. So yeah, I mean, it's what it is. I believe also. Was it Darius Perry? I believe was a 4-star player coming out of high school. So he was another 4-star player. We were going through all did UCF have a 5-star player? We were going through in our group chat about all the other 4-star players UCF has had. I believe Darius Perry was one when he came out of high school, and now he's on UCF as a grad transfer. Anyway, one thing I want to bring up before we go is the North Carolina positive tests. There's this kind of a small impact. We don't know yet about. North Carolina is going to play UCF in a football game here, so I hear, in about 2 months. We're less than 60 days away from this game between North Carolina and UCF.
We hope.
And was reported Wednesday night that among the 429 COVID tests that North Carolina athletics administered among players, coaches, and staff, 37 of those 429 tests came back positive. As a result, football practice, obviously most schools are going through voluntary practice right now. Voluntary practice at North Carolina has been shut down for 1 week. Now, we don't know what this means in terms of their preseason schedule, but certainly it's something to note considering, again, we are now, I think, 59 days away from the scheduled kickoff of UCF football season.
All right. Well, we got that coming up and plenty more. It's just a lot of news, and we'll be keeping on following it because, we're just like you guys, folks. We want to make sure that the news is coming at us, as it happens. And what does it mean for UCF? Some stories have an effect on it, others don't. But we're trying to figure it out as we go along. So, thanks again to you guys, Eric and Brian for the.
Hold on.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at these Ivy League highlights, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
More importantly, thanks to MOD too for
I wanted to huge thanks to Mike O'Donnell as well. You can follow him at MOD, the number 43 on Twitter. You can follow Eric and Brian at Eric Lopez Elo and _Murphy respectively. And thanks again to everyone else on the staff who's just been fantastic in dealing with what we've got. And I wish sometimes you guys would. I wish I could show sometimes our group DM on Twitter, because wow, we talk about a lot of stuff on there. So but it's a fun thing. But the news comes hot and heavy every day, and we're trying to figure this all out as we go along. So thanks always to you, the listeners. You can always follow us at UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and of course Black and Gold Banneret, your home for UCF sports on SB Nation. Thanks once again to Mike O'Donnell. Thanks to you. For Eric and Brian, I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll catch you next week.